Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
This is Ed Cohen in San Diego, a little after 7 a.m. here on February 1. Glad January is over. But for us here in Global Business News, it's been a rocket launch of a year. Thankfully, a long time coming. And as I was just telling Mark Colo a few minutes ago, it's been a challenge to get my arms around all the responsibilities that I've set up for myself. So be careful what you wish for, everybody. I think business is going to be really good this year if you can figure out how to help people. They'll listen because a lot of people need help. Mark Nadich is an executive in residence at Marquette University, and this is a brand new thing. Mark, say hi and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I spent 30 plus years in human resources roles at Abbott, SC Johnson, and the spinoff of Abbott, AbbVie. And I retired a few years ago, and I'm involved in a number of HR initiatives. And the most recent one is being an executive in residence at my alma mater, Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
So Mark is now doing a number of things, including charity work, which is a favorite, not just now, but over the years, and is very, very involved as well, lending his expertise in people management, executive management, for a group called Patina. Why don't you chat a little bit about Patina?
Sure. Patina is a on-demand executive service that provides organizations, consultants, interim assignments, and also one of the areas that I'm very involved in is executive search. So as we've had tremendous growth, we've been around about 13 years, and that's an area of focus for us. And you can imagine in the world that we live in today that there would be a significant need for those services. So we're growing and wanting to help people really across the globe.
We do have a time constraint for one of our guests, Yvonne Quat, who's with the World Bank, but she's written a book which is really climbing the charts. It's all about addressing the dual career dilemma, particularly in senior levels and a very large organization such as the World Bank. So, Yvonne, I know you have a time constraint, so you and I have done this talk show thing several times, but not with these all of these people, though. So why don't you just chat a little bit about the World Bank Family Network and your book, and then you mentioned to me something about the CARE code, C-A-R-E, CARE code, and how it relates to what you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Ed. As always, nice to see you, and it's Happy New Year, Happy Lunar New Year. We start the Year of the Tiger. And with my work at the World Bank Family Network, we are 50 years old this year as well. And we have been supporting families since 1972 because senior management actually realized that you don't move one person, but you move the family, and actually assignment success is impacted by that. But of course, our demographic has changed. When we first started in terms of our history, accompanying partners couldn't work, and they were largely female or wholly female. We started actually as the Wives Club. We have grown to become the World Bank Group Family Network in 50 years. But in an odd sort of way, some things don't change because dual career, because of the changing demographic, is a real issue. And companies are finding that talent is not willing to go anywhere and everywhere at any time because there is a main stakeholder that they have to engage who's actually not present at the table. And that is the accompanying partner. And therein lies the dilemma. Right. So very quickly, the CARE code is something that I design as I did the research, because I found anyway in my research, when asking people, how did you get here? Did you discuss this with your partner? Some said yes and some said no. And I thought, well, there are common career pitfalls, which I talk about in my book, but today, just to focus on the CARE code. CARE stands for clarify, assess, refocus, and explore. And it's a very simple framework to guide what is fundamentally a very difficult discussion. And so what I've been doing since the publication of the book, which has been really fun, is talking to people and say, what resonates with you when you read it? And interestingly, it is the CARE code. And one of my readers said to me, I find that it has unearthed my non-negotiables. So sometimes non-negotiables are things that we don't even know is a non-negotiable until something happens and we go, oh my God, I don't want to do that. But I actually haven't thought about it, but you suddenly hit something, I go, ouch, no, I'm not going to give way. And he interestingly shared with me that it made him realize that it was a way to bring out non-negotiables in any partnership. So I'm really enjoying getting the feedback because it gives me a lot more to think about. But if you go back to the couple, I'm beginning to realize if you can clarify what matters to you when you talk to the other people, whether you're in HR, whether it's your partner, whether it's a business negotiation, once you know that, you can both internally and externally assess. And then you can decide, where do we refocus this discussion? Do we need to refocus? Do we need to repair? And then you can explore whether it's in dialogue or in opportunities or data research or whatever. So it just gives you some guardrails, really, Ed.
So what we're talking about is the ability to say, I got a problem and I'm not afraid to talk about it, but I am afraid because I don't want to have a fight with you.
That's right.
Right. And so, I mean, this is real time stuff now, right? And so not all of us are so brave.
True. So it's a problem.
Right.
So you can blame it. I was talking today, I was talking to somebody about it and I said, use the CARE code, blame it. And you can get, you can stop in that moment of conflict and go, oh, but I'm only following the CARE code. This is what it said. It said, CARE. So now we're trying to assess this. So there are moments of pullback embedded in it.
Yeah. So let's go to Irma. Irma, what do you think of this so far?
No, I love what Yvonne just brought up. We don't think about non-negotiables until we get to a point where we just realize, whoa, wait a minute, this point where, this is a red line. You cannot cross that. And it's an important point because when we talk in general, a lot of times we're like, okay, you have to do this, that, and then we never talk about the non-negotiables. And many times negotiations fail because there is this non-negotiable point that people don't want to compromise or don't want to talk about. But having said that, that just reminded me of an important point in negotiation, which is not to take things personally and not to tackle the person when you are negotiating, because that could be a weakness in your negotiation skills. If you just want to focus on the person and not the problem or the issue, you lose your objectivity, you lose the common sense sometimes, and you just focus on things that could lead to a failure in your negotiation. You can take it to the global level when you talk about diplomacy in politics. Many times country negotiations fail because they particularly focus on the leader of a particular country. And if that leader is someone that you don't get along as the leader of another country, that could hinder the political negotiations that you're going to deal with the country, which could lead to positivity instead of a win-lose situation, which could eventually, hinder the diplomatic ties with that country.
Yeah, thank you, Irma. Let's go to Dave Levine. He is a people person extraordinaire. Dave, what do you think about that?
I think for many of us, we've been working moving
Dave,
further and further upstream to engage people. And as Yvonne was talking, the non-negotiable, ideally we get there earlier. We get there, as Yvonne pointed out, from focusing on the problem, not the people and not the personalities, even the rabid anti-vaxxers, which can hook me personally. Tough to focus on the problems sometimes, but we've moved further and further upstream. And I think what we've learned through COVID these last couple of years is mental health and caring about mental health is a front burner item now. It's no longer an antecedent to or correlate to productivity, absenteeism, engagement, these other objectives that HR and benefit leaders were after, cultures of health. It's now front burners. It removes some of the stigma, not all of the stigma, but some of the stigma to help us get to those non-negotiables at a point earlier than when folks are at the end of their ropes.
Well, thank you, Dave. Some of the voice connections are a little shaky. In editing, partner Paul will strive to take care of those edits. I want to go to Stephen Howard, who's amongst other things, the author of 21 books on business leadership. Stephen, what do you think about what Yvonne is doing and what Irma and Dave have added?
I would combine what Dave said with Yvonne and talk about, mental wellness in the workplace has nothing to do with HR anymore. Taking care of your team members. I don't care if you're a supervisor, a team leader, you're running a factory floor. This is not a C-suite issue anymore. This is not a HR issue. It's not an employee benefits issue anymore. I mean, various research is showing 70 to 80% of employees have said they've experienced burnout in the last 12 months. And stress and burnout obviously affects mental well-being. And so this is something leaders going to have to do. And I love Yvonne's CARE acronym. I think any leader could take that concept in applying it. And as I've often said, leaders have to unlearn how to be managers, and they need to learn how to be humans again. And I think that's going to be the difference in success going forward.
Mark Nadich, you I'm sure can add to the idea of being human.
Yeah, I think the word that Stephen used is care. I think that's every individual leader and every person's responsibility. And yes, it might fall into specific focused areas for functions in organizations, but it's every individual person's responsibility to have that. And that's something we just have to focus so mightily on, and it's everywhere. In the academic environment and university, the latest I heard on a big research was 60% of all students are suffering from mental challenge, mental illness, and so we just need to continue to have ways in which we can help organizations and individuals.
Thank you. Let's go back to Yvonne. Yvonne, I know you've got 8.5 minutes left. Oh,
I just think, back to what Stephen said about leaders and stuff and well-being. We go back to care. It's very exciting for me, as you can see. I'm excited because the more I talk, the more I see that it's, well, dare I say, more than I thought it would be. Because it's both a lens, an inward lens and an outward lens. So it's an inward lens in as much as that I can use it to say, if I'm interacting, say, with an employee, I can have a very casual conversation and say, hey, Ed, how you're doing? what's up front for you? What's important to you? So I'm getting to what matters in a very non-threatening, easy way. If I have a difficult conversation, depending on what my personality is like, I can say, hey, we need to discuss this. What really matters to you? I mean, there are many ways you can flex, but if you keep on thinking, I need to know what really matters, that one idea, I think, pulls the rest of it. And the other day, my husband and I had a discussion about the future, and we talked about what really matters to us. And we found that our priorities are the same, but they are in a different order. And I was like, wait a minute, now this is already that if my number one is your number three, we need to stop right there, because we need to at least come to some agreement. I don't say that his number three will become his number one, nor my number one become number three, but at least we need to know, like, this is what the landscape looks like. You see what I mean?
Yeah, this is really brilliant. Barbara Bolt, do you want to jump in here?
I was just going to add that I did a lot of expat training when I lived in Europe, and also I've done some since I moved back to the US. And when you meet families and you're working with them in order to help them settle in and learn that culture, sometimes you can perceive that they might not have had this conversation.
Right.
You can perceive that someone is not as on board with the move, or someone's had to give up something quite significant to them. And I think from a corporate perspective, that probably means that the employee might not be as focused in their job, might not be able to really bring their full selves to that assignment. So having these conversations before and thinking it through, maybe before the assignment is even accepted, I can see would be a huge, huge benefit. Thanks.
Absolutely, Barbara. Sorry, I have to go, but I want to say this. I think it was David who said upstream. I see them all the time with that, with that look on their face of, oh my goodness, how do I get here?
Yvonne, may I ask you please to go into the chat and put down your website or email?
I have.
Okay, good.
I put it in. I have my website, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, and I can write my email, which I see most of the time.
Yeah.
So I'll just use my Gmail account.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I
thank you for coming back on. I know you've got a busy schedule. Thanks, Yvonne, and please come back again. And we're going to continue on here. I want to introduce Maria again. She's in Athens. This is, I think, your third or fourth program. I really appreciate you doing this. And Dino in Italy, in Naples area. Welcome again. Dino.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, everybody. I just want to attach, before I go on and say what we do here in Italy, Yvonne, what my priority 1 was has become priority 7. So I'm probably going to need some of your assistance when I speak to my spouse. We're going.
Happy to help.
We're going forward. Yes, we are A to Z. We're destination service providers. We're located in the south of Italy. We're actually the only certified relocation company in the south of Italy, so we're kind of proud of that. We're not far from the Amalfi Coast, so those who are familiar with the southern part of Italy. So we're kind of lucky to be in a great location. We deal with corporate relocations, expats. We really didn't have anything to do during the COVID year, so we opened up another company which is similar to A to Z, which is called Bespoke, which we rolled out in January actually, and what we're dealing with, management of holiday resorts and a little bit of fun, glamping. So we really didn't have anything to do, and started to work into that that part of the industry as well. So thanks again, Ed, to have
You
having me
bet.
on your show.
Yeah, thank you. Maria, is Greece opening up now for business?
Thank you, Ed. Hi to all. Yes, Greece, and I think it's a general thing. It's not only Greece, but Greece is opening up. We have a very extrovert government who is inviting everybody to come to Greece, and we're going to be very busy. But I wanted to tell you concerning what it was an amazing talk so far, and thank you, Yvonne, and everybody for what you have been saying, because it's something that I want to confirm that I also feel it in the other part of the world here, that I feel that it's this pace, it's the pace that we're all living, that we're running to after things, and our life, because of COVID, maybe, is becoming more, it has changed a lot. And I see the feeling of putting priorities and being able to align with each other, that it's becoming more and more challenging. And it all goes, I think it's all about human nature. We need to how do you say, to put down our pace and focus on our priorities, so we can, as leaders, start to understand our employees. But on the other side as well, our employees need to also, like, each person needs to put some self-discipline on what is going on in his life, and then trying to prioritize and allocate the time that your job needs, your personal life needs, and everything else. I don't know if it's understood what I'm saying, or if I said things too quickly, but I just tried to confirm that whatever you said was really important, and that we all feel the same.
Thank you, Maria. We're going to expand this conversation. Everyone's going to have equal time here. I want to bring in Rob Pianka just for a moment here, and then I want to jump to Dave Edic, so we could get into this global business thing, and then come around the circle and get Roy and Arup and Sandrine and everybody else. Okay, so Rob, what do you think of this program so far? I happen to like it. It's totally unplanned, frankly. So I'm glad it's coming together.
Yeah, I like it. And for me, it's all about, Maria for me was talking about the fabric of societies. And we always think in big picture terms, and it's just fantasy land. You know, it's what's real is tangible. And if we're healthy in our tangible, and everybody's healthy in the tangible, the big picture stuff takes care of itself. You know, and Yvonne was talking about points that you're not going to negotiate. Usually when we approach another person, particularly in a multicultural situation, that's a landmine we discover. And you can barely recover from having stumbled into it. When you're dealing with somebody from your own culture, you can make assumptions, right? And you don't hit those things, but we have to walk carefully and slowly, you know, now that, you know, the world is mixed and all our stakeholders are from all these different places. We have to walk more carefully and be looking for those invisibles beneath the waterline. And it's not a bad thing if everybody in the human race suddenly got a little bit busier being a better person. You know, I think we'd all be better off. And so slowing down, fine. You know, that's what I thought about it so far.
Okay, great. Hey, Marianne, welcome back. So it looks like you're in Aruba, but actually it's San Francisco, right?
I only wish I were in Aruba.
Right.
This is great. Really, really great. It's too bad Yvonne's, she should have written this book 20 years ago, seriously, because I think we'd all be in a very different place. And I agree with so many things everyone has already said about the pandemic and rearranging our priorities. I would challenge you, Rob, because I don't think you can make assumptions even with someone in your own culture. It is never, ever, ever, ever good to make assumptions with anyone until you get
with you.
a better idea of who they are and where they're coming from. So thanks for bringing us all together, Ed. You're a mastermind.
Oh, I'm just lucky to have all these relationships. So, and Dave Edick is a new relationship. He was on our program about a month ago when we were talking about Latin America and Mexico. And it got into a really high-speed conversation about security and people issues and how it relates to business. But today, we want to talk about the energy business and how it relates to Russia and Germany, Europe, because Dave is an expert in this corner of the world. So, Dave?
Wow, that's a pretty sharp turn. I really would like to add to the conversation that's already underway. And, the role, the importance, the centrality of emotional intelligence really can't be underestimated. Awareness, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and the realization that stress reaches a point where it's toxic. And we talk about slowing down, maybe simplifying will do the same thing, will achieve the same things, where you can still maintain some velocity without the distractions. Anyway, some comments there, and it fits into what's going on in this European energy thing, Russia, the world of natural gas, and now all wrapped up in this storm over Ukraine, the latest storm in Eastern Europe. Cross-cultural awareness, human awareness. Someone mentioned something about, she's not here now. I think it was the lady in Beirut mentioned protocol
yeah, she
person.
is. Yep.
Okay, the protocol person mentioned the risk in focusing on a person, the person, personalizing a negotiation or discussion, and that is really infected a multi-generational, very international, very foundational aspect of human cooperation right now, which is energy trade. And Europe doesn't have the resources. Europe has a big population. They have the demand. Transitioning away from polluting coal to gas. We can talk about renewables for the future, but we have today. Europe doesn't have it, and they import it from Norway and from Russia. And the trade with Russia got started in the middle of the Cold War, in the darkest, deepest parts of the Cold War. But the Europeans, through Austria and bringing in the Germans and all, it was very international at the time. But they found a way to work together without letting ideology and politics get in the way of human interaction, human needs, actually. And we're really at risk of losing that. We're in dangerous waters here, where talk can spin out of control, particularly if those that are doing the talking really don't know what's going on.
Okay, Irma, what say you?
Yes, I do agree with what David is saying, and it is dangerous. It's a dangerous zone when you start talking about something that you really don't know what it is about. And it sounds cliche, it sounds absurd, but I think a lot of times in politics and in diplomacy, people are finding themselves in that position when you don't really know the whole scope of what's going on, and you just find yourself focusing on this point, and you have to keep insisting on this without really looking at the bigger picture of why your counterpart is saying that. Or how about if you look at the situation from another perspective and try to empathize or put yourself in the other person's position and try to see why they're negotiating in that way, instead of wasting time on trying the same thing that has not been working. I think nowadays in negotiations, this approach of trying to see things from another perspective, or understanding the history, the modern history, like 20 years ago, 3 decades ago, of how things were and how they have evolved. This helps a lot in the negotiation process, whether it's in politics, whether it's in corporations, even in family matters. You really need to go back and see where people are coming from, and how Marianne just said that don't make assumptions. And that is really crucial, because we don't realize this about ourselves, and we go into some negotiation without realizing that we have made an assumption, and we are basing our future tips or tactics to negotiate based on just assumptions. And that really makes us blind to what we are going to see, or changing our mind, because we think that if we change our mind, that's a point of weakness, and that's not true. The most wise people in the world keep changing their minds in a wise way, as long as you do it for the good of the whole. If you see how to come to an agreement in a win-win situation, that's all that matters at the end.
Thank you, Irma. Let's go to Barbara Bolt. She's a language specialist.
Yeah, I was actually just going to write in the chat, and then I erased what I wrote. But it's interesting. I taught international negotiation for a number of years at a prestigious Swiss university. And one of the things I always tried to teach my students is that, number one, you have to listen. And I think listening, as Irma was saying, that's how you discover if you do have an assumption, or if you've assumed something maybe in error. Because if you're listening carefully and really processing what the other counterpart is saying, you may discover something that you didn't know or you haven't anticipated. The other thing is that language in that kind of a context needs to be used very intentionally. People really need to think about the words they're using, and the connotations, the opportunity for mixed messaging, something being taken the wrong way. It's a fraught kind of situation. And of course, often in international negotiation situations, a lot of people, English isn't their first language. It might be their second, third, or fourth language. So they're bringing a lot to that conversation, and it can go off the rails if there's not a lot of care taken in the communication. I guess that's what I would say.
David?
Well, I agree. You know, the Barbara mentioned the magic word, listening. It goes a long way. If you're not listening, you know, train wreck sooner or later.
Yeah. Well, Stephen Howard, what do you think about all this?
Language is so important, the understanding that, the not making assumptions, that's all important. I was trying to think of a train analogy. Barbara said off the rails, David said train wreck, and I was trying to continue the conversation here. I couldn't think of anything clever. Listening obviously is a critical skill. Two things come to my mind. One, in the last maybe 15, 20 years, it seems that too much is being discussed in the media. You know, the Ukraine situation. I mean, if you go back when I lived in Asia in the 1980s, you wouldn't have seen governments using the media to negotiate as a channel, basically. And I think corporations are making that same mistake. I mean, I would say Amazon has made that mistake, and Starbucks as well, when they faced union situations in 2021, and both of them kind of used the media and used some publicity to try and influence the way the workers are going to vote there. And I'm not sure those are great tactics. I'll leave it to the expert like Irma and Barbara on negotiations on that. But I just think from a communication standpoint, from leadership, I think too many people are using them.
Oh, we're losing you. Sorry. Let's go to the Sandrine Bardot in Dubai. She's a compensation and benefits expert. And you've written something about 50 lessons in life. And how does it relate to what we're talking about right now?
So basically, I turned 50 a few months back, and I was inspired by another lady who had shared some of her life wisdom. I found that as a trainer and as a consultant, I get a lot of people who are asking for kind of career advice and so on. And there were lots of things that I learned. So I did a big brainstorming, because finding 50, because I wanted 50 because I was turning 50. Okay. So, but I think what we see, in some of the things that I speak about in those 50 lessons, you have to always be learning. You have to stand up for your values. You have to be an optimist. I don't say you have to, but try to come from a place of light and listen, take notes. I hope we'll be able to testify to that. I am a stickler for that, for taking notes. I think that in a lot of situations, it helps for negotiations, for many, many things, because it's not just that you have a written place where you can go back. It's just that when you're writing, and I'm talking old school, with a pen in your hand, it's been proven that there's an association between the brain and the movement of the hand, and you remember things better. And as a person, it's quite interesting, because I found that all of that was useful as an expat myself, and as a manager of expatriates. I was in charge of global mobility policies. And if I can look back to what Yvonne mentioned in the beginning of the session today, I had a very long conversation with her when she was researching her book and so on. And we were talking of, I took it from the angle also, not just of the assignee, but of the HR managing the assignee. Companies have been trying to cut corners a little bit on what they do to accompany international assignees in order to, reduce budgets and so on. I've seen it when I started working 30 years ago and what it is today. But I think that when you skip on the pre-assignment tour between the future assignee and their spouse to visit the new place, when you don't offer cultural training, to understand the culture of the place where they're going to go, when you don't provide much spousal support, I have seen employees come to me saying, I need to get out of this place. The transition is not working. My wife is going to divorce me if we don't go back. And you fail an assignment that you have invested as an employer. Just because you were trying to save dollars, you're going to lose thousands or hundreds of thousands in terms of value. And so I think it's very important to also think that it's not just to make sure that the spouse is feeling good for the sake of the person, but it's also a sound business decision as an employer to support that. And especially if there are two careers, because it is a sacrifice. Very often the spouse is who's following is still nowadays the wife, although that's not always the case. And nowadays, more and more couples have almost the same earnings. So in both spouses, so it's a big thing. They have ambitions as well. So it's very important to help them find other ways, maybe that they can contribute also. I think it's not just like earning money, but it's also a sense of contribution that one has through their work. And when you're following your spouse, and if you have to put that into parentheses, the company should try to help that person to find charity work, networking groups, whatever it is that they can invest and feel that they're contributing. I think it brings a lot of value indirectly also to the employer. So I'm sorry, I looked back to the beginning of today's session, but I felt that was important.
Well, you're an expert in comp and ben, and I first met Sandrine, if I may digress just a little bit, in 1999 at a conference that I produced in Paris, and Sandrine at the time was with Microsoft Europe, I think head of comp then, and you were a speaker at our event, and we've remained in contact all these years, so I thank you. So I want to circle back to you in just a moment. I want to go to India. Rohit, please come on and tell us a little bit about what's happening in ICANN. IKAN is the name of his company, which he co-founded a long time ago. What's happening?
Oh, we are experiencing business to be coming back to normal now. We had about a year and a half of not so good time in terms of business, but that's for everybody and for the whole world. And frankly, I'm pretty happy with that because when I was studying and was in college, I had this dream that I want to retire at 40, and I was blessed with that opportunity when I did retire at 40. And I stayed retired for 3 years. Then I got bored and I restarted the business again. And I said that, okay, I want to retire at 50 now, my second retirement. And that didn't happen, but COVID ensured that I took a break for 1.5, 2 years again. And then now this is the third innings of sorts. So I'm okay with COVID, and it's done me good. It's met my objectives at least.
Yeah, well, thank you for being on the
career breaks. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, let's get right back to you. Arup, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I work alongside with Sandrine as a partner in management consulting. And not so long ago, 1 year back, I was the global head of reward for one of the large corporations here in Dubai. Prior to that, I worked for Marriott and Standard Chartered Bank with 20 years experience in compensation and benefits. Now, I'm just quite, overwhelmed. First of all, thank you very much for including me in this group. Really feel privileged with the various kind of thoughts floating around. And I would like to support with what I'm seeing on the ground. In the last 1 year, I've been lucky. I think one of the few consultants who got work, given good word of Sandrine and everything, we actually got clients, 5, 6 large clients to work on. And you will believe it or not, each one of them want to reevaluate jobs. They want to restructure the organization. They want to relook at the salaries, and kind of resonates to what's being discussed here, right? Why they want to reevaluate, why they want to restructure the organizations. And some of them have been well established for years together. Things are changing. Dual careers, non-negotiable discussions, listening. It's all coming together, but it's coming together very quickly. I fear that when change happens very quickly, it leaves some portion damaged. We'll see to that, but I think the whole discussion is resonating very well with me as to what I'm doing on the ground in a very, very cold, practical way. That people want to change, and the big organizations are not shying away to do that. But yeah, happy to be part of the group and really enjoying the conversation. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Please come back again. I want to go to Stephen Howard because he's in the midst of book number 22 and see how all this relates to what you're calling humany, Humony.
Yes, that's a word I created that combines humanity, and harmony. And I think one of the things that we have not discussed in the workplace, and we kind of touched upon it here in the show, is harmony in the workplace. We talk about conflict management, reducing conflict, employee well-being, workplace wellness, stuff like that, work-life balance, which I don't think we can achieve. I suggest we look at work-life harmony. So the book is going to be some things we talked about, how to be, it's about being a people-centric leader. What I said before, how to kind of unlearn management and relearn being a human, because we have to realize as leaders, we don't lead, or sorry, I should rephrase that. We don't manage people. Managing people is a 1980s construct. We need to throw that concept out the window in my mind. So we manage things, we manage processes, we manage procedures, we manage policies, but we lead people. it's a different mindset. So thanks, Ed. Appreciate that.
So, Mark Nadich, you got years of all this. What do you think?
I think the commentary theme that I would go at is seek first to understand. And I think that everyone has talked about the power of listening, no matter what that is, in your personal, family, work, whatever that enterprise is. And I think that that is such an important thing for us all to kind of keep in mind. It's hard sometimes to do that, but that is something that is so powerful and important.
Yeah, thank you. Mark Colo, good friend from Southern California here. Mark, come on and say hi. Briefly intro yourself. Press the button.
I was going to say, well, hello, everyone.
Yes, hi.
It's good to be with you. I always enjoy being on Ed's show because I always learn something new. And you all have great ideas and great thoughts and philosophies. And I've really enjoyed the show so far. My background is I was in relocation for about 40 plus years, primarily on the van line side, but I've touched all aspects of relocation. I sat down one day to think about how long I've been in, how many people I've relocated. I came up with about 15,000 families during my career, and everyone was different. Our families are different. We as individuals are so different. And I think we have to rethink sometimes when we think we're right about a position and we're just, it's the right way to go. We need to kind of, remove the blinders and open our minds a little bit to is that person saying something that has some legitimacy, or are they just did they fall off the wagon? So I like the word CARE. I like that acronym. That was pretty cool. We had an acronym in our industry. IBM stood for I've been moved, and because they move their people all over the place all the time. But the word I like the most is advocacy. I think people that get into difficult situations, they need to have an advocate who will help them. And that's what we've tried to do at the foundation we started. Find Neuro Help is all about helping people that can't find the help they need anywhere else. That's kind of what we're all about. And you can visit our website and learn more about it. But I've really enjoyed this. I'll say one more thing. One in every four.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I'm going to ask you to do more than one thing, but go ahead.
1 in every 4 people will suffer from major depression at some point in their life. 1 in 4. And some of these individuals are in the families that you might be working with or touching. So that's a high statistic. In the next 15 years, Parkinson's, which there's 1 million people in Parkinson's that have Parkinson's. That number will double in the next 15 years. So it's on the rise. And so mental wellness is a very, very hot topic right now, very important. So I'm thankful to be engaged in it. I'm even thankful in some ways to be a part of it. I was diagnosed 16 years ago with Parkinson's, and it's been quite a journey from there. And if I've learned anything, I've learned that the only constant is change. And so we need to learn to embrace it.
So Mark and I have met over the years in the Southern California Relocation Council, which is an industry learning and networking, mostly networking. And about a year ago, we began to do some public relations things for the charity, which is called FindNeuroHelp.org. And it certainly raises some money, but Mark, why don't you explain how different Find Neuro Help is from other charities?
Well, it's different first and foremost is that we're not just funding research. We do fund research and we want to find a cure as soon as we can. Ed and I have a talk show in about, 10 days from now or something? I think it is maybe.
On Valentine's Day.
On Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a young lady named Jean Loring, who is on the cutting edge of stem cell research.
Dr. Jean, world-renowned scientist in brain research.
Yeah. He's probably one of the top foremost experts. And that's going to be wonderful because she's a great lady. I've known her for years. We've supported them for years and made donations to their cause. But not just research. What makes us different is that we do things, we reach out and help people with their specific needs by doing a full needs assessment, finding out if we can help them. We'll provide them the services that they need, usually financial, educational, and we help with people that have to relocate, that have these conditions. But we just want to be a help for them, and an advocate for them from, as long as they need us. Some of the services that we provide are pro bono, but most of them are below market cost. So that's a little bit about what we do, but it's been a great journey.
So Mark has written 2 books, and this guy keeps going and is an inspiration, and that's why I'm really honored to be able to provide some public relations assistance over the past 2 years, being on several shows like this. But the medical TV series that Mark asked me to help him create has taken off. It's really gotten a lot of eyeballs the past 2 editions that we did. Dr. Barbara Geiser, we did a talk show with. It was about MS, but she also talked to us about, in plain English, about how the vaccines work or don't work. And the stem cell research, doctor, that we have coming up on February 14, and you're all invited to attend that, or you can watch it on demand later. She's figured out how to, they're trying to research it, of course, stem cells, applying stem cells into this search, right?
That's right. Yeah, they're trying to take actual cells. What causes Parkinson's is there's an area in the back of the brain called the substantia nigra, and there's these like grape clusters, as I describe them, and they produce a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine relaxes the nerves, keeps you calm. That's why when you get Parkinson's, when you see usually your pinky starts moving, you see that of your dopamine cells. Dopamine producing cells are dead. So you've got 20% trying to pump out as much dopamine as the other 80% were doing, and the body just can't adjust to it. So you develop a tremor, and that kind of grows from there. But the stem cell research is to go in and take some of the cells from that area that are working, produce more of them, and then inject them back into that area of the body or into the bloodstream, and that ends up going to that area. It's fascinating, and Gene Loring is an expert in all of that. So, and if we had more time, Ed, but I don't want to infringe on everyone else's time.
Okay, I think Rohit. So Rohit, you've got more to talk to us about.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, my grandfather suffered from Parkinson's, and and that was like 25, 30 years back, and there really was no cure for him then. I just saw him deteriorate over time, and then one day he left us. So I can understand, how difficult it is for you and others who would have this disease. But I want you, Ed, I want to introduce you to a lady who I know here. She is doing a lot of work on crowdfunding and for curative care, and maybe you would want to pull her into that chat as well. From India, if you're interested, I'll be happy to introduce you to her.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah, because the kind of stuff that they're doing here, it's quite amazing as well. The kind of diseases that you see in India and the suffering that you see here. And then there is this organization which is doing crowdfunding, putting in a substantial amount of money through their methods, and then subsequently getting curative care given to individuals who are on the list. So maybe if you're interested, I'll introduce you to her.
Yeah, why don't you send it to Mark Holo and to me in the chat, some contact details, okay?
I'll do that, yeah.
We are pleased to welcome Adamo Education as a proud sponsor of Global TV Talk Show.
The concept of a micro school is the reimagining of the one-room schoolhouse. My name is Tamara Becker. I'm the president and CEO of Adamo Education. The micro school concept really does not just lend itself to the personalization and the customization of learning, but also the social development and fostering that sense of love for learning. Unlike what we see in traditional brick and mortar schools, we have multiple grade levels in the same learning space. Students can be enriched by the socialization that they get, as well as the academic support from peers. What differentiates Adamo is the fact that we are taking the best pieces of brick and mortar, of digital, and then at-home learning. Students here can come 5 days a week. They can come 4 hours a day. It will really just depend on what is best for the student and for the parent. To enroll, just reach out via phone, text, or email, and we'll have that personalized conversation, and we'll be able to get you all set. Check us out at adamoeducation.org.
Hi, this is Ed, and I thank you for tuning in to Global TV Talk Show, a unit on globalbusinessnews.net. We broadcast to the world, as you know by now. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that our programs are advertising supported. We're grateful for co-sponsors, advertisers. They have a marketing budget coupled with a strong desire to be associated with our top quality program. And of course, I'm grateful. Thank you. So for the next few minutes, you're going to see some commercials. It's mostly very low key, and our prices are very, very reasonable. Our exposure for the advertisers go 12 months and beyond. Some of our advertisers have been with us since March, April of 2020. And Google Analytics has tracked over 125,000 what they call audience page views, which means you looking at this page, that's a page view. Now, if you happen to go to one of our other shows or to our radio broadcasts or to our newspaper or magazine, those become additional page views as measured by Google Analytics. And so when they say 125,000 since spring of 2020 up through Labor Day, a month ago, that's pretty good numbers. And the past 30 days, Google Analytics has measured just under 6,000 audience page views. And that, according to them, is a 42% increase in audience participation over the month of August. So thank you very much. Well, here's our advertisers, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes or so, and we'll proceed with this interesting conversation. Thank you.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we're researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what happened to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
So I just want to say before we move on here, my dad died at 86, but the last 3 or 4 years of his life, he had Alzheimer's, and he didn't know Mom, he didn't know me from a hole in the wall, you know? And so, I mean, it's really weird. You know, I didn't know about mental health services or about, you know, how to deal with all that. I just sort of pushed it aside. But Mom still had to deal with that. And she finally passed on when she was 95. And a week before she died, she was playing, doing the New York Times crossword puzzle with her doctor. So her body gave out, but her mind was like right there. It was amazing. So I've done enough talking, but let's go on with care. Dave Levine, you're an expert in this.
it's interesting. I really appreciate being part of this group.
I'm sorry, Dave, we're not hearing you. Dave Levine
Discussion has taken here. Yeah, it's still a problem with the connection.
Yeah, your voice is.
If I turn off, is that any better?
Yeah, I think it's stronger.
We've all become experts. We hear a news flash on immunology or polling, and all of a sudden we're experts at that and bring passion to a conversation about whatever topic we think we know about, and we don't know much about it. But we all see so many examples of that, and of late. And when I hear folks talk about listening, it's really back to basics. The pride is a primary obstacle in being able to listen and really engage in problem solving and expressing the compassion that getting to the compassion and expressing that we feel. And I think we need to check ourselves in our own pridefulness before we get to more of a servant leadership role, more of a listening accommodation role to help folks we're talking with. Rob mentioned earlier in the conversation about the tangibles, and I think one of the tangibles, I think once we get to that compassion, the tangibles are leveraging the mobile apps, the telehealth, and the data that have become more available to us in the last 2 years on whatever our initiatives are, and leveraging those tools in tangible ways, practical ways to express the compassion, to address the mental health, to address the relocation, cross-cultural issues, or whatever those priorities are. I think those tangible, practical steps, again, leveraging technology and the mobile apps available, leveraging telehealth and that whole platform that we're on right now and that wasn't available to us or a few years back, and then gleaning the data from that to be smarter, to become smarter about those populations we're serving, are real tangible ways that we can get after this.
Great, thank you. Let's go back to Dave Edick, and we've been going around the horn here, Dave, as you know, but let's go back to your experience internationally in oil and gas, and what do you think is a solution?
I'm not sure where you're going with this.
I'm not sure either.
Okay.
Take me away.
Right. So, I've been doing international my whole career. I trained to be an international investment banker. By designing my own major at the university, global political economy. They didn't have such a major, and that was at a time when the East opened up. The Cold War was ending, and I went. And so I've spent 30 plus years living in Russia, dealing with Russians in the Russian Far East in Vladivostok, which is a very international place for Russia. Lived and worked in Mexico, but the Russian angle is really a specialty, and I'm not a big fan of specialty. I prefer integrative. But all of the items, traits that we've discussed here today are crucial to building these people-to-people bridges. I spent 30 years with sister cities. People-to-people bridges, but cross-cultural awareness and how to communicate, how to have that successful negotiation to reach a business arrangement without stumbling or without wasting time. I've enjoyed my ride.
Rob Pianka and you have something in common, and about because his specialty, Rob's specialty, is global agility, right?
Yes, that's what I call it. Yes. And I was listening before about when Steve was talking about leadership and negotiating online and all that. And it made me think about the plight of leaders today who have to go out and do something, across cultures and arrive at a good decision, and then bring it back to a domestic audience where people on all sides are trying to slap the ball out of their hand. And then they have to talk to a public that frankly is so ignorant that they don't know what the leader is talking about. And you see so much good decision-making and good policy options just dying on the vine because, there's no receptivity for the right answers. And for me, I focused on, okay, how do you take the normal person, the common person in the audience for all of this, whether it's an employee or a citizen, right? And get them moving on primary skills and early engagement in the world so that they become a better audience for all of this. I kind of did that because I like human beings, but if you look at it from a leadership point of view, wouldn't it be great if somebody could go privately and talk through this Ukraine crisis, come back and say, well, you might not get all of this because we did work with their interests too, right? And this is what we're going to do, and we need you to get behind it. And then the general public and political opposition all says, well, yeah, let's follow this guy because, we sent our best out there and that's what he brought back. When was the last time you heard that?
Henry Kissinger was doing that, right, Dave?
Oh, I remember Neville Chamberlain as well trying to do the same in 1938.
Very good example.
That was a pretty complicated time. We got to be careful about simplifying very, very complicated scene. As earlier in this conversation, someone mentioned about what happens when people go through change, and what happens when change becomes really intense. Well, we're in one of those times right now, and when change is very intense for people, the world kind of shrinks down. People become narrow, maybe more emotive, brittle, and they withdraw in some important ways. And we're also going through a period where mistrust is kind of in vogue. Play the fear card. There were times in the corporate world where that's something that would be played, that fear card. It's not very good for human resources, though. I mean, it's a good way to drive people away.
Yeah, Mark Nadich.
It's the themes are just so consistent. That's my takeaway, and I think that I don't know about time, but I got to jump off in a couple minutes. But I do think that this is really critical that we have these kinds of conversations, because the importance of connectivity that each of us can bring to other things that can help us. And Mark, I'd love to chat with you because that's something that is really important to me about the kind of work that I'm trying to do as well. And maybe there's a intersection where we can help.
Yeah, well, Mark Nadich, why don't you come on the talk show, the medical talk show on Valentine's Day morning. Let's go back to Emma. Emma, we're talking about negotiations here and cross-culture stuff, right?
Absolutely. And yes, and I've been listening, and I'm very much in agreement with what is being said. And going back to one point that Barbara made earlier about choosing your words, in negotiations and in diplomacy, it's very crucial to choose your words, because every single word that you say will be weighted and will be analyzed by your counterparts. They would start wondering why you chose that word, in what a scenario you meant to say that word. Like, for example, many years ago, former President Obama referred to Russia as a regional power. And, if you look at it from a very broad perspective, he meant for Russia in the region of Eastern Europe, Asia, and in that region. If you talk about it that way, it makes sense. But if you look at it from a Russian perspective, regional is not a word that they liked. And, the diplomacy that is happening is under the table. People don't see that, but Russia, in a way, wants to be recognized as a superpower and have, the mutual respect that they've been talking about. And if you look at it from the other side, maybe their counterparts don't necessarily see them as a superpower. And these are really the underlying factors that are affecting the diplomacy that is happening on the land of the Ukrainians, let's just say. That is just what we see. But what is really going on is behind the curtains, and choosing your words carefully, having mutual respect, and trying to see things from another perspective are the things that are gonna help this negotiation and hopefully the solution to this crisis.
Dave, Edic, so then is it right that we're holding back praise and ego strokes to Russia during what we're seeing the public side of the negotiations? Is that so? It's being used as a weapon, right? Oh, sound.
Sorry about that. I actually think it's much more fundamental right now. This gets down to deep the sense of human security, both as from a cultural national perspective, as a body politic, but also in a personal sense. If the Western approach or the American approach becomes one of a personal massage, it's not gonna go very far, because there's some deep fundamental issues here, and that's a crucial takeaway for us in the West. That all said, one of the underlying things here in the U.S. in particular is, well, and I still hear people use the words Soviet Union, mind bending at that, but they lost. That's kind of a common way of looking at things. And in the human reality, in winning and losing is a pretty risky way to look at things, but people also recycle. People and cultures ebb and flow. I think we need to look at that very carefully here in the United States about that ebb and flow before we talk. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Stephen Howard, do you think that's going to be a new chapter in the book?
No, we were talking about what pretty much is being covered throughout the book, actually. There are a couple of thoughts there make me think this weekend about some new things, but no, I think what I'm really impressed by this panel particularly is it seems like almost every one of us has either lived outside their home country for an extended period of time or traveled extensively outside their home country as well. And I think that's how we get to know each other better. I lived in Asia 21 years. I lived in Australia for 12 years. So I've spent most of my adult life outside my native country. And I know Rob has as well, Mark has, David obviously has. And so I think that's how we'll get to, the more people do that, the better off the world's going to be. And it's just not Americans leaving America. It's more that Singaporeans who live in the United States, or Japanese who live in London or UK or anything like that. It's just the more cross-culturally we get, the better off we're going to be. And the more, I love Rob's word, the more globally agile we will become as a humanity.
Dave Edic?
Agility is a great word, and human agility. It goes beyond flexibility because it also includes taking action. It's something that we need. And I would say, unfortunately, in a time of great stress that we're in right now, a great period of transition, how it takes the best of us really to sustain that. And yet really that's going to be the quality that gets us to the kind of future, a stable and a future of light rather than darkness.
Thank you. Mark Nadich, I know you're building the agenda now for being an executive in residence at Marquette University. So obviously globalism, being global HR, that kind of an approach, that's your background anyway. So I'm sure this will be helpful to some extent. But I want you to reach out to these folks here and see whether you want to get them involved in your program.
You bet. I'd love to. The great thing about, maybe one of the great things about what we've experienced the last 2 years is we're much smaller together and much more connected around the world. And so I'd invite any one of you to be a part of, one of our classes where you could be a guest speaker, and we can do it, via Zoom and other technologies that maybe a few years ago it wasn't so common. But we really want to teach our students to think globally, and part of our mission is to make a difference in the world and start with each other, but really connect around the globe. So I'm excited to do that, and we'll love to have any one of you come and speak, because you're all global leaders, and that's something we're very committed to doing.
So before we,
Yep.
You bet. Before we depart, we're going to get everybody to say one more thing. I want to announce something really special that's developing behind the scenes, about to go public, and it's International Women's Day is going to be celebrated on March 8th. Barbara Bolt, do you know about all that?
The funniest thing is that I learned about International Women's Day when I lived in Italy. All of a sudden there was this holiday, March 8th, and every woman on the street was walking around with this little yellow piece of plant. Ginestra is the name of the plant. And it's traditional on Women's Day in Italy to give women this plant and then take them out to dinner, which is right before Valentine's Day. So that was a little complicated, but I'd never heard of it. I had never heard of it. And people were like, well, but it's based on a US event. And apparently it was based on this fire that took place in a US clothing factory somewhere. I've forgotten all the details now. But effectively, and this goes back to something that David said, it was a communist holiday to start with. It was labor. It was oriented toward the labor movement. And, these workers did not have safe conditions, and all these women were killed in this fire. But honestly, as a US American moving to this other culture, I didn't know about this holiday. And now, I first moved to Italy in 1994, so it was a long time ago. Now it's really taken off here in the US as well. And that's happened, I don't know exactly when that all started. I've been back in the US for almost 10 years now, but it's an interesting evolution, I guess we could say, that now our culture has also jumped on the bandwagon of celebrating International Women's Day. And it means, in Italy, it was about flowers and being taken out to dinner. I think here in the US, it's about something different at this point.
So I want to invite you all, and especially Irma and Barbara, to be my guest on our program celebrating IWD, International Women's Day. And we've started this. Stephen Howard introduced me to Dr. Lynn Schmidt. Then we did a talk show together, and now Dr. Lynn and I are staging this conference. And now it's about to explode because of demand. Just this morning, frankly, about 3 hours ago, there has been, through my own marketing and outreach and through some others, we've been able to attract already, I think it's 12. 1 second here. The old school here, I wrote things down. Okay, we're at 12 right now for March 8th. And this from Sri Lanka and India and Dubai and across the US and Mexico City. And so we're just building this thing as fast as we can. So I invite you all to come. We need guys on the show. Right now, it's Stephen Howard and I. So we want to get some muscles here. So what we've learned, because we're going to start it really quickly, 12 o'clock California time will be 9 p.m. in Switzerland, right? CET. And now that's not that late, but go any later, it gets to be a problem. So when we started getting inquiries, requests to speak from women in India and Sri Lanka, for instance, they said, would you try to do this thing earlier? Because it's just a little late for us, because 12 o'clock noon in LA is 1:30 in the morning in India, right? And so, of course, we got to change the time. So then I sent out a memo last night to everybody, a bulletin, who wants to change the time? I do. And we'll start at 7 a.m. in LA, right? Which means in India, it's 8:30 that night, which is very doable. And so the vote is in. 99% said, yes, change it. Okay. And then we got some pushback saying, believe it or not, I have something I have to do that, and could you leave it at 12 noon start? All right, LA start. So I said, okay. And so then Stephen Howard says, well, let's just break it up. So do more than one show that day for time zone acquisition. So I said, that's a good idea. Okay, so then we decided, okay, we'll do 2, 7 a.m. LA, 12 noon LA. And then it occurred to me that I've got friends and contacts in Taipei and Singapore and Sydney and Melbourne, as I call it, not Melbourne, Melbourne, and Auckland, and said, what time is it there? So I started doing my Google thing and I said, oh my God, it's like beyond, right? And so I said, okay, so if it's 5 p.m. in LA, what time is it over there, And it turns out to be the next day in their morning, in their business morning. So I said, okay, we'll do a third show and attract people from Asia Pacific, right? And so I haven't put it out there yet, but already I'm feeling the vibe happening that, boy, that's a good idea. So we're going to do 3 broadcasts to celebrate International Women's Day. So first of all, it doesn't cost anything to attend. We want co-sponsors. It's $100, but your logo goes worldwide. So anyway, if you want to come on one of those shows or all 3, it's great. If you want to find a lady, because it's all about women, of course, to come on the show and speak, please do it. Just send me a message and I'll get on it. And I love the cat. That's a really good prop. That's good. So, but I welcome your feedback and your participation. Like, again, there's no fee to be involved, no obligation, other than guilt. We were just looking for sponsors. So I want very much to say thank you to you all for being here on this program. I thought it was vibrant. So thank you for doing this. Amber, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Thank you.
So it'll be probably 3 or 4 or even 5 days before Paul, my partner, tech partner Paul, he's really backed up. We've been producing a lot of shows, and this kind of a program is long. There's going to be over 1 gigabyte of data, and it's his job to break it apart and meld things together. And so it's going to take a few days, but you'll all get the copy of this for sure. So thank you. And
thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Great to meet you all.
Have a good one.
Yeah, it's been great. It really has.
Thank
Always a good conversation. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.